Welcome to the OWASP Melbourne chapter meetup, the November 2021 meetup. Thank you very much for joining us. We are so excited to have you here today. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are mainly streaming from today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and coming. I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people watching here today. Well, this would be our last meetup as we wrap up the year. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our volunteers, speakers, and supporters for all the sacrifices and contributions in making this community possible. Thank you. Also, thank you watching and participating here. Without you, there wouldn't be a community. As we prepare for next year, we look forward to hearing from you. We have a short 10-question survey that we'd like you to fill up. The link is on the screen and in the description of the YouTube video below. We'll close the survey on Christmas Eve so that it gives us a bit of time to work over the long holiday period, what we are going to do next year. We're also looking for volunteers to help us out with various things. So if you'd like to help out, please reach out. That's really all of the updates that we have. So without further ado, let's welcome our first speakers, Sven and Carlos, to share with us about the mobile applications verification standard and the mobile security testing guide refactoring. And sorry, yeah, that's the link. Sorry, I missed that. And I'll bring the rest on stage now. Hello.
Hey, Daniel. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Very good. Excited for the talk today.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Over to you then. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Then let me start the presentation. And yeah, then let's start for today. So thanks for joining our session for today about the, Daniel was saying it already, the MASVS and the MSDG refactoring. So the goal of this talk today is really to give you an overview about what is happening at the moment in the mobile security testing guide and also in the mobile AppSec verification standard, and give you a glimpse of the roadmap of where the project is heading at the moment. Just very briefly, as I guess many of you might not know us, let's quickly introduce ourselves. So I quickly hand over to Carlos to introduce himself, and then I will take over again. So over to you, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Carlos Olguera. I'm a mobile security researcher at Now Secure, and I'm together with Sven, the mobile security testing guide lead, and really happy to be here with you and share our news.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Carlos. So my name is Sven, and I'm actually from Singapore, and I'm being the technical director of F-Secure here in Singapore. And as Carlos was saying, we're both the project leads at the moment for the OWASP Mobile Security Testing Guide, a project that is already restarted since 2016. So we're already working on this project already for quite some time. So yeah, otherwise, just thanks again for the invite from OWASP Melbourne and Daniel. Really nice to be here and share about our project with everybody. We will definitely answer questions directly after the talk, but you can also still follow up with us via Twitter, GitHub, or of course also in the Discord if you have any questions. Okay, then I would say let's start. So just at the beginning, because not everybody might be familiar in detail about the MASVS and MSDG, so just that we're all on the same page, I want to give you a very brief introduction on the next two slides. So the MASVS is the Mobile Application Security Verification Standard. Very long, clunky word, but at the end of the day, it's the foundation of our project and is really establishing all the different requirements that one should consider for testing, but also developing mobile apps. So we have roughly 80 different requirements as of now in the MASVS that are spread across 8 different categories. So a category might be, for example, data storage, network requirements, and all of these things. And all of the requirements are OS agnostic, meaning they're written in a very high level, so they would be applicable to iOS, Android, and also any other mobile operating system if there might be something else coming in the future. So the requirements itself, it's of course in English language, but we have many translations also available because we have a quite great and vibrant community. So if your first language is not English, then I would say it's pretty likely that we have the language available because we have even Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, German, French. I think we have 13, 14 different languages as of now. And therefore, there's, I think, for everybody's one translation also available. And so this is the foundation with the MASVS. So this is purely about the security requirements. And this document is therefore obviously also not changing that often in the last few years. And we had a pretty much set of requirements. So this as foundation is the foundation for the mobile security testing guide. So the mobile security testing guide is now really a very detailed and very comprehensive manual to help penetration testers or auditors or mobile app security testers in general, and also for reverse engineers to really have a playbook of how you can execute all of the requirements and verify those requirements in the MASVS in technical detail. So this is describing the technical processes to verify these, and the structure of the test case is always the same. So you have an overview section that briefly explains what this test case is actually all about. Then we have a static testing section, which is outlining what kind of keywords you might want to look for if you have access to the source code, if you are able to easily reverse engineer an application. And then there's, of course, the dynamic part of the testing. So when you are executing a mobile app, this step will explain to you how you can verify a specific requirement while executing the app on your iOS or Android device. So this might be things like verifying the log files if there's no sensitive information being logged in a mobile app, and what kind of commands you should be aware of, and what you might want to search for if you want to verify such a requirement as the logging of an iOS or Android app. Okay, so this is just to recap what the MASVS and MSTG is. And now we will guide you through some of the changes that will be happening to both documents. So first, I will be covering the MASVS. And for this, I want to share with you 2 different topics. So the first one is about automating the checklist generation. So this is something that I didn't cover yet. So we have the MASVS, we have the MSTG, but we also have an Excel checklist. And this checklist is basically mapping the requirements in the MASVS with the MSTG test case. So the MSTG is also available as Gitbook. So there's a link available that goes then directly to the test case, and this is where the mapping is then happening. So in this Excel checklist, you can very easily just navigate directly to the test case, and you have this overview, which can also help testers as a methodology to go through the testing. So the challenges that we are facing with this is to keep this up to date, because every change that is happening in the MASVS would need to be reflected then in the Excel sheet. Then we have as I was saying, quite a lot of languages in the MASVS, but the Excel checklist, we only have a few available, only a subset of the languages. And ideally, everything should be pinned together with Git tags and also the versioning so that everything is clearly identifiable and traceable. The other thing, and this is the bigger piece that we are working on at the moment, is the requirements refactoring. So the moment we are brainstorming, discussing internally about what kind of requirements really make sense to keep, which ones might be redundant, which one we should maybe split, merge. So there's a really open discussion around this at the moment. We're trying to keep this as transparent as possible by putting our proposed changes also into GitHub discussions, which is a new feature that was released a few months back on GitHub. And our goal is really to remove overlaps and just be more specific and more actionable with our requirements. And also to have something that is maybe also more binary so that we can simply execute even dynamic testing more easily and simply give more guidance around it at the end of the day to achieve more automation. So for the checklist generation, let's go a little bit more into detail into this. For the checklist generation, it is that the MSTG and also the MASVS, they're both in separate repos on OWASP, and both documents are written in Markdown. So what we are thinking of is to put these documents now into an interim state, into a YAML file, so to make it machine readable. And this YAML file could therefore then be used downstream even from other projects. So there's, for example, the OWASP SKF, the Security Knowledge Framework project, meaning these kind of projects could be utilizing this interim format. And if it's machine readable, then of course we can even get more statistics around it, maybe even the coverage, because not for every requirement in the MASVS, there might be a test case in iOS and a test case in Android. So therefore we can easily also see how the coverage would be in terms of the MASVS requirements and if the test cases are actually available. So this is therefore a format that we can then use for many different purposes because it's machine readable, right? So that makes a lot of things much more easier. And out of this YAML format, via Python scripts, we will be able to create then a checklist automation, a checklist generation, so that we can really get Excel checklists directly into all the different languages that we're having. And this would mean we have less maintenance, obviously, which is one of the main problems that we are facing with this manual overhead. And we can focus more on the content and all the other things instead of these tasks. And therefore, even small changes in the MASVS or in the MSTG could automatically be could be taken over into the checklists. So therefore, this would be a huge benefit for our project and also for Carlos and myself and everybody else who's deeper involved into the project. The next part is about the refactoring. And you can see here on the left side, our Miro board, our mind map, where we have broken down all the requirements in the MASVS into the different categories that we have at the moment or domains. And we are discussing through every requirement if this is now something that we really want to keep, if it should be deleted, merged, split. So just to really, also with all the experience that we had over the years, to see what is actually working and what is really actionable also for consultants and for testers. You can see on the right side, this is one of the GitHub discussions that I was discussing or sharing earlier. So one of the discussions, which is the link on the bottom right with ID 559, this is a GitHub discussion where we were sharing the current network security requirements, the requirements, the old requirements that we had, and the refactored requirements, meaning that we have changed some of the requirements, we were getting rid of some requirements. And why we are doing this is that we want to go through every domain step by step, want to publish it, collect the feedback also from the community so that we really have this as transparent, as open as possible, and then really come to a conclusion and finally put in the or published in the MASVS version 2.0, and that we really have a common agreement on everything that is within the MASVS. So we are following a few, I would say simple procedures or guidelines, you could say. So we really want to abstract as much as possible in the MASVS so that the details are in the MSTG and in the test cases. Because some of the requirements were already going a bit too detailed and we are keeping them now a bit more broader. So this also allows us to simplify things because at the end of the day, we also want less requirements and want to categorize them maybe also differently and really narrow down the scope. So what I mean with this is that we want to shift requirements maybe also to different other standards. So for example, there's the OWASP ASVS and OWASP SAM, which are really great projects, and they are very good in their area, and therefore it wouldn't make much sense on our end to duplicate the efforts and just lead to confusion. So we should be better aligned with these existing projects in order to really leverage on what is already there and really make a proper boundary of what we really are focusing on. Also, actionability is really important for us in order to make the MSDG more automation friendly. This means, for example, rules that we can think of in the future, like SEMGRAB rules that could be used in order to really automate as much as possible from the checks. And of course, there is clarity also needed for some of the requirements simply because of the language and formulation that we definitely can do better. Another thing is the attacker view, because we really want to have a clear overview of the mobile attack surface. So we revisited the mobile attack surface, and here you can see an exemplary penetration testing approach. So as a tester, you obviously go through layer by layer, and where each layer is one category in the MASVS. For example, storage. So to test all the data in rest that is being stored on the device. So this attack surface we did also evaluate to understand really how this maps back to the MASVS and what we are missing and what we also might need to change. So the current status of this is, you can see on the left side now the MASVS, and so you can see the current categories on the left side. So I will pick now two of them just to explain you a little bit our thought process behind it. So the first one, architecture, is the requirements in there. They're usually not really being verified by a penetration tester. And this might end up in a very high-level survey with the client, or the chapter is basically skipped. That's at least according to our experience. So this category is covering things like threat modeling, if the app is compliant with any kind of privacy laws, regulations, cryptography regulations, and so on. And therefore, the requirements in this category are actually bigger than the mobile app alone, and is usually also reflecting the majority of a company or of the team that is developing the specific software, and also their adoption of SDLC and DevSecOps as a whole. So therefore, it would make more sense to export these kind of requirements, and we are simply referencing to a project like OWASP SAM that is really there to identify the maturity of organizations and how good they have really implemented the secure SDLC. So therefore, this is something that we would consider as completely getting rid of it and simply referencing to another standard. Authentication is another topic, which is V4 on the left side, which is pink. So this is mainly happening on the server side, and it's therefore also not really in scope of the mobile app itself. So obviously the API endpoints would need to be considered for testing, for security review, but with the ASVS, the Application Security Verification Standard, we really have a very long-term project that is doing a fantastic job of all the requirements. I think they have over 300 requirements that you should be considering when implementing, for example, an application. And the authentication part on their side is much more detailed, much more granular. So therefore, it makes simply much more sense to simply reference to them for everything that is on the server side. And again, on our side, we avoid any duplication and simply focusing and narrow our requirements more to the mobile apps. So the majority of the categories we definitely will keep. It's just that we want to simplify and rework them. And this was just an overview about them. Then we can move to the MSDG, and over to you, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, with this whole simplification, what we want to do is to be able to grow more actually. And since we are changing this baseline, what's our baseline of requirements, which is then reflected in the testing guide. We will be addressing the testing guide as well, which will produce a very big refactoring on it. So we want to go also from more static documents to dynamic documents that you can use, as Sven introduced before, by other tools, and that you can derive information. So this is what's here as the point number one with the usability. So we want to enable testers to be able to use what we already provide, but not just read it in the document and copy pasting something, but having tools which allows to use that on your tests directly, like for automation. And this is a crucial point here. If we get to do this, this will enhance the testing experience a lot for so many people. So then for this, we have to refactor our whole architecture, which I will go into detail in a couple of slides. And we will see things that we already started doing, like packing all our mobile security testing tools in its own chapter and properly referencing them, so you can find all over the guide which tools you can use. We have more general chapters and testing chapters, and we want to draw the line so that general explains more and testing are more about testing only, like steps. And one of the main goals here is to have per MESVS requirement one test case, which is not the case right now. Right now, you can find test cases which cover maybe 2 requirements, or there is no requirement for the covered. But we will see about that later. And the last point is, of course, the maintainability, because this is too much work to maintain all this information. And if we simplify, streamline some of the information, we will be able to remain more timeless and more up to date, just by nature, so to say. So now I'm going to talk about this usability, these rules. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So here's when you are testing maybe other things as well, but mobile at least. So we use different testing techniques, which normally are static analysis, dynamic analysis, and they end up being the same. Like you have several things that you usually do, like you search for something like with grep, and you search for certain classes, methods, which should have certain parameters, etc. And in the dynamic analysis, you do something similar, but with tools that allows this, like Frida. So we want to have keep having this information in the MSTG, but on a format that other tools can consume. So we could just be able to test automatically by retrieving all these so-called rules from the MSTG directly. So this way you can use it for third-party tools, you can use it for CI/CD, like in GitHub Actions or Jenkins or whatever you are using. And you will be covering at least the things that we consider can be completely automatable, and you can maybe already derive a finding from them. This will be a lot of work. It's we are not doing this right now, but it's planned. As you can imagine, these things take time. First, we focus on the refactoring. So, and yeah, this is to give you an idea about the whole refactoring, like putting everything together, MESVS and MSTG. So on the left side, you see the MESVS, which contains several MESVS IDs, which we already process with our pipelines and produce our PDFs, ebook, etc. But we want to really connect this to the MSTG. And in the MSTG, this is the architecture, as if you would imagine the MSTG as a software piece here. So this is already there, but we will kind of rename it and make more sense of it. Like maybe these blocks that you see here, they are in the MSTG, but they have other names. So by renaming them like this, we hope the whole thing makes sense. And as Sven introduced before, the main thing we have is test cases. So we want to have one test case per one MESBS ID, and keep having the overview, static analysis, and dynamic analysis sections. And we will see clearly that a test case is covering, is using testing techniques, which will be in another chapter for Android, for iOS. And they will reflect this static and dynamic analysis techniques I was talking about before, which are supported by several testing fundamentals, like just connecting to the device, installing an app, and other very basic things. And the testing techniques use certain tools as well. And you will be able to find this in the MSTG via links, like references, cross-references between chapters, etc. And all of this, our intention is that we can generate a lot of information, derive information, statistics, make it usable, readable by other tools, etc. And of course, keep using it for our generation of our PDF, etc. And yeah, so the next thing we have is that so this is a lot of work and a lot of changes, and we won't stop there. We want to bring something new to this because it's a big change which deserves this. So we took that and we wanted to express it graphically. So we are rebranding our MSTG and MESBS, which look like this right now, and we decided to do something like this, which is very much streamlined and simple, and this wants to reflect our intentions here. So we have two documents that are pretty close to each other, actually part of one entity. We want to make them clear and simple and consistent. I mean, they are already very, very good, and you can already use them as is, but after we do all of this, everything will make much more sense, and you will find much more structure and functionality, and you will really notice the complementarity between both of the guys and also both of the systems that we are addressing in the MSTG, like Android and iOS. So this is our intention with this. We hope you also see it, and you can give us feedback to this and all anytime. And yeah, to finalize, just to let you know that you can contribute. You can ask us if you want to contribute. We have contributing guidelines and how to contribute in the OWASP MSTG GitHub page. So please feel free to read there or contact us, follow us on Twitter. And yeah, so we're happy to have you there.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was an amazing talk, and it's really cool seeing that big picture and that whole architecture of knowledge, if that's a way to put it. That's one heck of a diagram, and how that whole thing fits together. Definitely captured that in that new design that you're going with. So I guess we'll take a few questions. Let's drop that screen. Alrighty, we have a couple from Discord. Init String asks, you briefly mentioned and other operating systems as they may come in the future. Curious, are you all hearing anything from the Linux mobile distribution communities like UBports, Plasma Mobile, Sailfish OS, etc.?
To be honest, I'm not really involved into that much. I mean, basically, it's for us about the iOS and Android portion as of now. Not sure if you have anything more experience in that, Carlos?
Not yet. I mean, with this tool, we already have a lot of work. This are being used by pretty many people in the world. So we will consider that in the future, but for now, we are staying with iOS and Android, and we might consider also some frameworks like Flutter and Cordova and others. But that will also take time. So you can imagine we first want to do this and do it right, and afterwards we will see.
Yeah, so maybe just to add, I mean, that was our focus always to stay on the native apps, simply because of the things that Carlos was saying, because it's already hard to keep up just with iOS and Android, because obviously there are the major changes every year with the OS, and we already have quite a few issues for the latest iOS and Android versions that we need to work on. So therefore, didn't really make a deep dive yet into anything else besides iOS and Android.
The thing is that the requirements should be the same, actually, unless there is something fundamental in those new operating systems that changes everything. But we take care of making this very abstract and agnostic. So they should be the same, and you could try to use them over there. Just the testing guide would be different, of course.
Okay, thank you. I guess we have a question from YouTube. Let's see if I bring this up.
Nice.
Yeah, for specific and actionable action controls, how will you deal with the huge number of cross-platform frameworks, React, Mobile, Xamarin, etc., because more and more apps uses them?
Okay, I mean, this goes basically also, I think, into what Carlos was already saying. I mean, the requirements are basically OS agnostic. So therefore, if, for example, you have a framework that is relying a lot on web views, then we also have a section about web views that might cover this. And otherwise, on the MASVS itself, this should always cover all of these things anyway. Does
Cool.
that answer your question, or?
Hopefully that answers the question, Dominique. Yeah, we have another question. Oh, by the way, that's Andrew, our next speaker.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey.
Hi, Andrew. Okay, we have another question from Init String. Are there any plans to correlate the testing guide to MITRE's attack for mobile metrics?
So I am aware that this is available, but to be honest, we didn't really look into it into more detail, or at least I didn't look into it as of now. But I think it was more around the platform and not so application specific, if I recall correctly. So therefore, many of the things are more on the OS layer, and with the MSDG and MASVS, we are looking at the app layer. So therefore, if I recall correctly, there wouldn't be that much synergy for the MSDG.
Yeah, so we are considering a lot of things right now, a lot of other standards that use the MASVS standard that we use, and maybe we could go a bit deeper with them, referencing to them. And this is also something we will also take a look. So I took a short look, and there were some things that might apply to the apps and others not, but we will have to take a look in the detail. And sometimes it just means some extra considerations for us, but nothing world changing.
I do have a question. So, so with all this mobile AppSec assurance stuff, where and how does one get started with doing, mobile testing and all of this stuff? What capabilities do you expect of a junior getting into this should have, and any recommendations on where to get started?
In the MSTG, of course. So some years.
I mean, falling short of reading it from cover to cover, like. it is a chunky document. So
Yeah,
like,
is,
what should we bite off first?
it is, but it's very good, really, and not because we made it. No, really, it's my own experience from a couple of years ago. So I was searching how can I learn this, and there was no really good resources online, and I was searching for trainings, which weren't also very good. And then I found this, and I was like, wow, but everything is in here. You can just read, you can just navigate it however you want. Just go to the section that you have interest in, storage, and just start following instructions and using your Android phone or iOS. So you really can find everything you need. So just go ahead.
Yeah.
It's our best recommendation here.
Maybe just one thing to add is there are, of course, a lot of vulnerable mobile applications. So we have, for example, the CrackMe's available in the MSTG, which is a set of vulnerable iOS and Android applications. These are specific more for reverse engineering. And I think, and we also have the hacking playground. So these are, and there is, I mean, there are a lot of these kind of vulnerable mobile applications. And I think if you simply try out a few of them and you are at least able to intercept, meaning you're able to bypass SSL pinning and you can master at least this, then you should be able to go for, of course, the majority of mobile apps. I'm not saying, I mean, especially in banking industry, it can become quite crazy in terms of what you need to disable. But if you master this, then I think that's a good starting point. And then, as Carlos was saying, I mean, in the MSTG, I would simply search then for specific things that you might need to tackle, and then there should be then the proper steps to guide you through. I mean, the MSTG is not a document that you should read end to end. It's beginning to end. That's not possible. I would say that might also be a bit dry, but I mean, I would think it's a very good summary in terms of I have problem A. Problem A is referenced here, so I simply follow the steps, and then usually this should guide you along the way, and also references that you should be following up with. Otherwise, so what I want to say is practice with some vulnerable mobile apps, get a proper Android device and an older iOS device that might be compatible with the checkra1n jailbreak. That's maybe a good starting point. And otherwise, the rest is really in the MSTG. You also have a basic section on what kind of hardware you might want, what kind of software you might need. And then it's just follow the breadcrumb then through the MSTG with the keywords.
We have a
Sweet.
Gitbook version. You can open it on Gitbook, and the search is very good. You will find all the stuff you need. And with this refactoring we are presenting now, we are also enhancing that experience. Also for people which is starting, everything will be even more clear. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, there is also a couple of thanks coming in from the chat. Yeah, thank you for the talk. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate your work and all the hard work that's gone into actually writing such wonderful guidance for us and sharing it with the community. And thank you so much for making time, especially Carlos. It's super early for you. Thank you. Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. I'm going to transition to the next speaker. Yes, sorry, I interrupted somebody. All good? Yeah, cool. Thanks. Our next speaker is Andrew Horton. He's here. Yeah.
Hey everyone. Hi. I am going to.
He'll be talking to us on cracking Android pins. We'll once he gets his screen share up, we'll bring him right up. Okay. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Sven. Alrighty, and on to you. There you go. Take it away.
Hi everybody. My name is Andrew, and I'm going to tell you about cracking Android pins. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to my son Alex, who's 10 years old, who helped me with the background on this slide. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so I'm also known as Urban Adventurer. That's my hacker name. although I live in Melbourne, I'm actually from New Zealand originally, and I'm known in the information security community mainly for my open source work. So I've written a variety of different security tools like WhatWeb, URL Crazy, and many others, some of which are now in Kali Linux. So I really like supporting free and open source security tooling. Okay, I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a CEO of Domain Defender, my own company. I'm a CTO of Crowdfunded Cures. I am the lead security consultant at Path Networks, which is, honestly, it is the best company for DDoS mitigation. And I'm also director of engineering at Coin Payments, a crypto startup. So I do a lot of different things. But I can also give a shout out to some of my cool hacker friends, including the guys at Promithic and Hacktive. Yeah, anyway, everyone else. Okay, so I want to tell you how to hack pins. And you're gonna be thinking, hang on, it's 2021, right? How is this still an issue? And prepare to be disappointed at the sad state of Android security, okay? Like this diagram actually tells you pretty much how the whole thing works, okay? So originally I had to do this research. Someone came to me and they said that their father had died, leaving behind his phone. No one knew the PIN number. And unlike in decades past, this is now a social problem that we have to deal with because you can't just go grab the old family album and look through the bills and the letters. That's simply not possible anymore. So being a cybersecurity expert and so on, I said, okay, sure, I will try to unlock it, but I didn't know how I was going to do so. Anyway, so I had the Samsung Galaxy S5. I knew how old it was and when it was produced, but I didn't know how up to date or patched it was. But I thought, hey, this thing's from 2014. How hard can it be? So, like any security pro with decades of experience, I went straight to Google and just typed in, how do I do this? And I had a look through the materials. I looked through the prior art and what people had to say about how to hack pins and unlock phones. And I found a lot of different approaches and strategies that did not work for me. So first up, shout out to the guys at Data Genetics. They had this, at the time, a really cool analysis of pin number frequencies. And their big claim that the world's media picked up on and repeated was that over 25% of pins, right, could be guessed by just 20 combinations. That's a pretty big claim, right? Now, it turns out the way these guys got their data was by taking password dumps. Now, if you don't know what a password dump is, it's where some criminal hacker or cyber criminal hacks a website, steals the database, steals all the passwords, and then leaks it. And then what people do is they get collections of these leaks. So when big sites like LinkedIn or Adobe and all these other huge social networks had all their passwords leaked, people combine them into giant mega leaks. So that's what Data Genetics did. They went through one of these mega leaks. They extracted every password that was numeric and 4 digits long and ran frequencies over it. And honestly, I think that people who use 1, 2, 3, 4 for their password in some rubbish website they don't care about, it's not totally the same as their phone, but whatever. Moving on. It didn't work. I couldn't unlock it with the top 20. I actually emailed this guy and asked him for his full list and he wouldn't give it to me, which I don't know. Okay, so if you've seen a scene in the movies, they will research the person they want to steal, they want to figure out the password or the PIN from. And there was an episode of Tiger Team. I don't know if you saw it. It was like a red teaming group in the US where they're, breaking into a luxury car shop and they come down through the skylight, and they use like GSM jammers to stop the alarm system calling out. They use all this really cool stuff, right? Now, in that, there's a scene where they have a safe and they want to open the safe. And due to their prior research about the manager, they know the daughter's birthday. And that was the combination on the safe. So I collected all the important dates from the family, birthdays, years, wedding anniversaries, etc. All the old digits of old phone numbers. No, none of this worked. Just didn't work. And then I tried the other advice. Now, Google had this Find My Device feature. It's kind of deprecated now. It's no longer current, seeing as it was for Android 7 or lower. But it didn't work. Unfortunately, he never enrolled it into that program. And Samsung had a similar Find My Mobile service. Unlike Apple, where everything just works, you just buy an Apple phone and you get all the security out of the box. You don't even have to say you want to turn it on. It's not like that with Samsung and the others, or at least not for a phone this old. He had not registered his phone with the Samsung service either, so I couldn't use it. Now, back in 2015, and this could have been relevant, right? There was this lock screen bypass where there was a buffer overflow vulnerability. And what would happen is, using the phone's interface while it was locked, someone could fill up the copy-paste buffer and make it larger and larger and larger until it was thousands of characters long, right? And when that was finally pasted into the password field, it would overflow the amount of memory in the computer program designed to take that, and then it will just crash it. And when the lock screen crashes, the ordinary Android system is there to be used. Didn't work. This only worked for a short while, and only if the user had set an actual password, not a pattern and not a PIN. Okay, so didn't work for me. And some of the other popular advice on how to unlock phones said that you can use this thing called ADB. And if you watch the previous talk, then you'll know that ADB is how you can communicate with an Android device for debugging, right? Usually it's over a USB cable. Doesn't have to be, but usually it is. And it has to sort of be set up beforehand. The phone has to trust the computer. And honestly, normal people don't do this. Only people who want to modify their phones and replace the firmware with something a bit more custom are going to get to this point and do this. So it didn't work. Okay, so there's this community of phone hackers and modders centered around XDA forums. Okay. This is the place you go when you're interested in, messing with phones. So I went there, I read their guide on hacking and bypassing Android password, etc. They had 7 different methods. Anyway, long story short, I couldn't use any of these methods. None of them worked because they're all designed for people who are modding their phones and have set up their phones in unusual ways. So yeah, it's no good. Wouldn't help, right? And honestly, even these experts said, if you can't unlock it this way, just wipe it, just give up. And I didn't want to do that. If I performed a factory reset, sure, I can get past the PIN problem, but then I lose all those precious family memories and photos and so on. So no, not an option. Okay, so I found all these ads from companies like Wondershare, and they promise to remove the lock screen. Huge promises. They say it works, and I didn't really know how this worked. I didn't know if it would work. So I dropped $40 on one of these. I actually paid for this one, and it guided me through everything I had already tried. So, and then it just told me to reset the device, and no, it wasn't going to work for me. I had to try something else. So then I had a look at what the mobile forensics market had to offer. You've got the big names like Celebrite. That's what maybe the cops are going to use if they seize your phone and take it off you. And you've got Oxygen Forensics. X-Ray is what Border Force are using at Melbourne Airport. There's Grey Key, Octoplus, and various others, right? So I talked to some friends. I actually talked to a friend of mine who worked for Celebrite, this Israeli forensics company. And he said he was going to send me a unit, but he was moving house and he couldn't find it. So that was going to take a while. Talked to another buddy of mine, and he suggested maybe have a look for Oxygen Mobile Forensics Suite. So I managed to track down a copy of it. And, it worked. It was an older copy. But then I got to the point where I realized, hang on, you actually have to unlock the phone first before you do the forensics. This thing wasn't going to crack it for me. So yeah, I had to move on. And I thought, well, maybe like the cops and the spies and so on, I should buy myself a Celebrite unit. And over the counter or, directly, they are pretty expensive, but you can buy them on eBay for, I think it was about $500 when I had a look. And I thought, well, that seems pretty reasonable. I don't mind that kind of money. But I didn't take this approach, even though this would have cracked all kinds of phones for me. But it was a backup plan. And then I had a look at the security research that had been done on how to hack Samsung phones just in general, and versions of Android that this phone might be running. Now, because it's just a phone in my hand, okay, and it's locked, there's a lot of things I can't do. I can't load on a malicious application. I can't click on a link and go to some website. So all these options weren't available for me. Now, although there was potentially, a lot of like CVE 10s, privilege escalation and code execution vulnerabilities, there's very little in actually exploit code that I know will work. So I didn't want to take on a huge research project. I didn't want to do that. It was not going to be easy. I just moved on, right? And then I came across this clip from Hack5. Now, if you don't know Hack5, you should. They have loads of great videos, lots of really cool hardware that you can buy from them. And one piece of hardware that they sell is called the Rubber Ducky. The Rubber Ducky looks like a normal USB drive, but it isn't. You plug it in and it can just start typing commands on your computer, hacking you instantly. Now I've actually got a friend, Ed Farrell from Mercury ISS over in Sydney, and he dropped loads of these things all over Sydney. And whenever people plugged it in, it would just instantly send their computer to his website so it could track it and show like a map. It was pretty cool. Anyway, check out this video and you'll see what they could do.
Let's test it out. So, all right, so with our phone turned on, I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the duck. And it's going to wait about 5 seconds before it starts doing its magic. We put that delay in there, and that's just to make sure that it doesn't like immediately start flooding the computer with stuff. And there we go. We can see the last digit when it gets to the end because we are typing pretty quickly. And we went through 0000 through 0003. We'll get to 0004. And we've now done 5 attempts. It's going to hit enter twice, remember? And we're going to speed this up right now so we don't have to wait the full 30 seconds. And 0005, 0006, 0007, 0008. And hey, would you look at that?
Okay, so that looks ideal. That looks like just the right sort of thing I want. Unfortunately, although I had a Rubber Ducky, I had it in the storage container with all my hacking electronics, and all that stuff was lost because, yeah, whatever. When I got back to Australia, I kind of lost everything I owned. Long story. Okay, so is it time to give up and order some hardware? And I really thought about it. I thought about ordering myself maybe an Arduino, because using that, I'll be able to emulate a keyboard, or if I could use the Hat 5 rubber ducky, I could do the same thing. Or maybe I could go the expensive route and get that professional forensics quality gear. But this was back in July last year, and you know, Ozpost wasn't working. It was just madness. So no, I didn't want to. I wanted to get this sorted. But you know what I did have? I did have my OnePlus One phone. And that was, at the time, the flagship model for running Kali NetHunter. And on it, it did have some rubber ducky type scripts. You know, they were designed for HID keystroke injection. So here you can see the Duck Hunter app and that little scripting language where it sends the enter command and it sleeps for 300 milliseconds, and then it sends, you know, a letter and so on. So I tried it, and I tried it out just generally, you know, sending payloads to a text editor on my computer and things, and it worked well. And then I tried to use it to crack pins using the same script and the same program that I showed you on the rubber ducky. And I could load it in, and I clicked go, and it just hung, right? It just didn't respond. And the reason for this is because this script didn't have like a for loop that would iterate over numbers and increase them. No, it was just really, really long with all 10,000 possibilities, with little sleep commands and sending enter in between and delays and so on. So it just broke. I had to like quit it. I had to move on. But the thing is, this approach technically should have worked. And at that time, I knew how I was going to solve this problem. What I knew was that I could either, I can get myself this USB on-the-go cable, and using that plugged into a phone, I can plug in a keyboard, an actual keyboard. I did this during my testing and so on as well. Or I can emulate and have a fake virtual keyboard through the same means. You can also plug in a mouse, USB drive, various other things, okay? It's pretty cool. And unable to use any of the tools and any of the software, I just had to do it myself. So that's an actual photo of me while I was coding this. So I had a multi-stage plan. I had to, it's not really me. It's from Swordfish. So I had to learn how you emulate a keyboard with my NetHunter phone. Then I had to write my own code, and for this Samsung S5, it would take 5 pin numbers. And then it would make me wait 30 seconds, and then I could repeat. Then I just watched the phone until finally it unlocked. And it did. On like, I think the second day of trying to crack it while I was just sitting around watching TV. And then after that, so I had to sort of rewind it and then get it to like unlock again, watching very carefully what the numbers were. And then I tidied up the code, documented it, made it look cool, put it on GitHub. So if you want to know what this actually looks like when you're using it, let me show you. Here you can see the usage command, and I based the way you use this on the command line interface of kube control, which is like a Kubernetes control utility. I really liked the way there was a small number of main commands and then a series of options that you would modify it with, which is, I suppose, a fairly recent sort of change in CLI tools. And this is what it looks like. So I got this phone for a really good price off eBay because the screen was all smashed up, and that's why I put electrical tape all over it. And you can see that you've got a config for the Samsung S7. So this is an S7, it's not the same as the S5. Because after a certain number of incorrect attempts, the delays are different, and the delays get longer for each time. So now we're up to 60 seconds, and the script will count down until those 60 seconds are up, and then continue. And then bam, it goes to 5 minutes, right? So this can take a long time. But if you don't mind waiting weeks or months, it's fine. It depends what kind of phone you've got as to how long it's going to take. Okay, there you go. And Samsung isn't really the best demonstration. They're reasonably onto it as far as the lock screen app goes. Whoops. So let's say you have a phone and what I'm drawing. You want to test this out. What do you need? Well, first of all, you've got your Android phone that's locked. Next, I advise a Kali Net Hunter phone. But because you're all security pros on this, you can use another Android phone, but you will need the HID kernel module. If you can make it go, then that's fine. You're going to need a USB on-the-go cable, and of course the script from GitHub Android pin brute force. So why use my approach? Okay, the main thing is because it actually works. That really is it. I mean, it's open source, it's configurable, we can change it, you can extend it. You don't need special hardware. And most importantly, you don't need to have already hacked your phone beforehand or to put it into like debug mode. It just works, okay? The features. You can handle the length of 1 to 10 digits. I don't know if you're ever going to come across a phone with 1 digit, but whatever. You have customized configuration files for different kinds of phones. And the pin lists are optimized. Unlike that first pin list I showed you from that guy, Data Genetics, who didn't want to share, I actually got a pin list from these guys who gave a DEF CON talk. And they had used more or less the same approach to order the pins according to their frequency and likelihood. So I did that. I grabbed their list and got a permission from them for that. And then I generated my own for, lengths of 5 digit, 6 digit pins and so on. It has some features to, hit the escape key and various things to bypass pop-ups in case there's a low battery warning. It can detect when your victim or your locked phone is powered off and so on. Lots of features. So go to GitHub, all right, or just Google Android pin brute force and it will bring you here. And
sorry, was this supposed to be something on screen? I'm seeing a black screen.
You're seeing a black screen?
Yeah.
Okay. For how long have you been seeing a black screen?
About the last 3 slides,
Okay.
I think.
All right, I'm going to restart sharing, okay?
Yep, all good.
Okay.
It was just after the video. After the video stopped, the screen stopped working.
Okay. So what you missed was you want to unlock the phone too, okay? And then you've got the benefits. It actually works, right? It has great features. There are more features than just these. And you can get the source code from GitHub, like so. You can see this now, right?
Yep.
Great. Okay, now for installation, you have more than one method, right? But you just have to get this onto your phone. Now, what I did was I enabled the SSH service on my Kali Net Hunter phone, and then I found the IP address, used SSH to log into my phone from my laptop, which meant that I could use an actual real keyboard of my laptop. I didn't have to use the keyboard on the screen on my Android phone. Now, a lot of people who are doing this are using the terminal on their Android phone, and honestly, I don't know why you bother. It's really hard. It's awkward. Just don't do it. Okay. Anyway, you have to transfer these files into your /SD card folder. And then you'll notice that when you launch it, first you have bash, and then you point it at the script. Now, the reason for that is because your SD card is most likely going to be mounted no exec, which means it won't execute scripts. If you chmod plus exit, it's just not going to go, right? But it will work this way. Now, you're wondering, is it going to work with your phone? Wow. You can check out the phone database. I've had some help from various people in the community testing out their phones. It's been tested with versions of Android 6 through 10. The version of Android does not matter. This is all based on how bad the lock screen app is by the manufacturer. Okay. I've had some really great help from Vlad at the Vancouver Forensics Lab and some other people. They're all credited on the phone database. Yeah, you can see the credit in the middle, and that dude is Vlad, Urban Adventure is me, and there's some other guys. Cool. All right. So there are some phones I know don't work, but I haven't had time to really test them myself and make config files. So even though it says it doesn't work, that's not to say that you can't make it work with a little bit of effort. You see, different phones require different keys to make them pop up the pin pad. On some phones, it's escape. On other phones, it's control escape. On other phones, again, you've got totally different things, like hitting the space bar or whatever. I mentioned this briefly before. It comes with these optimized pin lists, and this is based on the GasPack database leak. So that is a massive 21 gigabyte decompressed database leak of all kinds of passwords. And of those, nearly 140,000 of those were fully numeric, just numbers. So I extracted those and ran analysis on them, and then used that to generate my own optimized pins for the length of 3, 5, and 6. For the 4-digit ones, yeah, thank you to Justin and Paul from ISEC Partners. They had a much better list than me just because they gathered, more databases beforehand. Cool. Now, when you're using it, if you do want to change your pin length, it's just the dash length command option. Easy. If you want to use a customized pin list because it's based on, let's say, birthdays or years or whatever, dash pin list, and then offer a file. It's easy. What about cracking with masks? So if you know regular expressions, you'll recognize that dot is a wildcard. Okay, so let's say you know some part of the pin. You've seen them enter it before, and it always ends with a 9 or whatever, right? ... 9 is going to try absolutely every pin in order in the optimized pin list, but only those that have a 9 in that last spot. Let's say you think maybe it ends in a 4 or a 5, either one, then you put the square brackets around it. And if you're familiar with regular expressions with the grep tool, then this will be familiar to you. Oh yeah, you can also use dash dry run to see what it'll do without it actually sending anything. Really good for testing. Okay, so the config files that come by default with this tool are the Samsung S5, which I made on the first time. I've got a Samsung S7 that I made a config file for. I've got a Motorola G4 and G5 Plus, and someone also provided a, I don't even know how to say this. It is a Xiaomi Mi Mix. I don't know. Someone tell me how to pronounce that later. All right, your config file looks like this. It is actually a shell script file, but it's all variables, and they're and their values, and it is sort of self-documented. So while you're editing it, there's a tutorial in there to tell you what to do. The most interesting thing here is, I think, the progressive array, where you can tell it how long to cool down in seconds after a certain number of attempts. So let's say you start off, you can try 5 and you cool down for 30 seconds. And then once you've tried, you're on your 11th attempt. Well, and then after 1, you gotta wait 30 seconds. And then after your 40th attempt, again, you have to wait 60 seconds and so on. In this particular example, it does change. As for the keys before each pin, it'll send an escape and an enter. The key after each is an enter. It varies per phone. And the delay after the keys as well is fully configurable. The period of time during cooldown where it sends keys to keep the phone awake is also configurable to keep it really fast and responsive. Whether you want to do that or not depends on battery life and how you want to crack your own phone, along with a few other things like your log file and the ability to customize pretty much everything the script does. Oh yeah, if it can't communicate over USB like 15 times in a row, it'll just stop. But before then, if you maybe unplug it, plug it back in, get it working, it will pick up where it was and just continue. All right, so how you customize the progressive cooldown arrays like this. And you can see from that table how that maps across to each of these 3 bash arrays. Okay, if you're not familiar, bash is one of the more common Linux shells. Okay. So let's say you're doing this and you just want to troubleshoot, you just want to make sure it's working, right? Maybe the script isn't working for you, but you want to know that the phone, your OTG cable and your NetHunter phone are all working. Well, you can go ahead and get the USB keyboard app. That is available in the default NetHunter store. And it makes it really easy just to touch the touch screen and send keys and just make sure that's all working. And if it is working and then you want to test it from the same method that the script is using, then you can echo letters or special things like enter. You can echo that into the HID keyboard binary and then specify the HID device and the fact that it's a keyboard. Now, the first time you plug in something, you're going to get HIDG0. The second time you plug something in, maybe like a mouse, it should be HIDG1. If you have a problem, just reboot your phone. It should start working. Okay, so a question I've had a lot is, what about iPhones? Are you going to support iPhones? And the answer is, well, Apple isn't as trash as Android when it comes to security. Part of that is because there's only one Apple hardware manufacturer and only one Apple software manufacturer, right? It's not like this wide ecosystem of all kinds of different manufacturers that can do things their own way and the wrong way. Now, this should work with old iPhones, maybe version 3 or 4. Some of the hardware forensic cracking tools only work up to iOS version 4. So if they can do it, I think I can do it too. If you have a phone of this age and you want to lend it to me for testing, please do. Okay, so you may be wondering, well, how exactly is this working under the hood? How is it sending these keys? Because it might be easy to understand plugging an actual keyboard in, but how does a phone pretend to be a keyboard? And why can't my laptop pretend to be a keyboard? Well, the reason around that is about bi-directional USB ports. Now, chances are your laptop, although it supports USB, it cannot pretend to be a USB client device. It's just not going to work because of the hardware limitations, but your phone is different. It also uses the Linux kernel, and it specifically requires the HID gadget driver, which is what creates that /dev/HIDG file to begin with. And if you're on NetHunter, you should have this HID-keyboard binary. if you're not on NetHunter and you want to grab it anyway, go to this link on kernel.org. It's a Linux kernel test utility. You can compile it yourself and you'll be able to, import it on your own Android phone. Okay, the biggest question everybody asks is, why does this exist? How is this still a problem? And honestly, won't devices wipe themselves, they ask me. Well, number one, no, most devices are not going to wipe themselves. Like, sure, all of you could configure your phone to wipe itself after 10 incorrect attempts, but how many of you have actually done that? I'm going to say probably nearly none of you. As for the other countermeasures, sure, there are some. It's up to the handset manufacturer. I think that the progressive lockdowns will help in some cases, in other cases they won't. It depends. Maybe for some people it's worth trying to brute force the pen of a phone over a year or so because the data is worth that much. What's next on the roadmap for this little tool is implementing the Apple iPhone cracking. And then I want to move on to cracking Android patterns. So the pins are sorted, and to crack the patterns is going to require emulating a mouse to be able to sort of move the finger around, clicking and dragging between different points. Finally, being able to detect when a phone has unlocked is a challenge. One method would be to use the front camera of an Android phone, leave it on top of the screen of the locked phone, and then detect when the colors and brightness change. And finally, creating some kind of a GUI app would be quite cool. Okay, if you would like to contribute, please do. It's an open source project, and it's there are other contributors who have already helped out a lot. Thanks again to Vlad. And people all also ask me, what about the ethical implications? And I think this Ken Thompson quote, he's one of the grandfathers of Unix. His quote is really appropriate. You see, he talks about the ethics of breaking into your neighbor's house. Well, in some situations, breaking into your neighbor's house is ethical and is socially acceptable. So in the same scenarios, breaking into someone's phone is also ethical. It's useful for people who have forgotten their PIN. They break into their own house. Family survivors, they need to break into their loved one's phone when they pass away. Law enforcement may want to break into the phone to gather evidence. And then there are cool security consultants like you and I. And we do it because it's fun. Oh, and we get paid too. Okay, thank you for listening. If you like it, please go to GitHub and click start. And if you like security news, please go to my website, morningstarsecuritynews.com. Thanks.
Alrighty. Ooh. Thank you. Are there any? Sorry?
I'm looking forward to questions.
Yeah, questions. Waiting for the questions to come in via whatever chats there are. So, have you been approached by anyone yet about the tool? Sounds like some people looking for a budget Celebrite might be interested, I guess.
Oh, well, look, the funny thing is, I've been told by some people who do forensics work that these commercial tools like Celebrite don't really have good support for some of these older phones. And there's a gap, and that gap is being filled by this.
Right.
Yeah, I have been approached by that sort of user of the software.
Nice. Cool. We have a question coming from Discord. What challenges are there in emulating mouse inputs?
I mean, I've got some code that should work. I mean, it should be fine, right? Because you can use that same gadget test utility to send keys to send mouse movements and mouse button usage, so it should be fine. One of the challenges is to get the user to measure the distance between each of the different dots on, let's say, a grid for the pattern. And then once that's measured, then it's easy to understand where each of the dots are and how far across the mouse has to move.
Right. Cool. Just
Yeah,
that's
it's actually really simple. It's just, you know,
emulating a rubber ducky on a phone using NetHunter. Nice. Going to find a lot of fun uses for that. Any like modern Android phones that this still works with?
well, I mean, I think it works in pretty much all of them, but some of them are going to make you wait really longer and longer periods of time. So unless you're willing to like wait months to get through 100 guesses, you know, it may not work for you.
So we had a question where someone asked, any phones with super aggressive, like more aggressive prevention measures, like enough to make the attack practically impossible?
Oh yeah, I mean, sure, but you'll still get through like your first 20 or your first, you know, maybe 100 guesses. I don't know. I mean, if you've got an iPhone, you already know what it's like. It'll make you wait longer and longer.
Right. Thanks. If there is no other question, I guess we may call it a night. I see someone typing. So do you have any tips? Initstring asks, do you have any tips preventing this on stock Android phones?
Buy an iPhone.
And on that note,
No, look, I mean, if an handset manufacturer wants tips, then yes, I can give them tips. But for an ordinary Android user, try not to use a pin in the top 20 most common pins. And if your phone is vulnerable to this, then just go buy a new phone.
so practically, if say using the passphrase option instead of a pin, and
Yeah, that'll
you
work.
have that.
But I mean, using a passphrase on your phone isn't very practical. Most people wouldn't enjoy that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I think the proper solution to this is to not accept new USB devices while the lock screen is enabled.
doesn't like then Pixels do that or something of that ilk?
I
don't
think
know.
maybe the latest Pixels do have that feature, and that will stop this. But this attack shouldn't be an issue in 2021. It's really ridiculous.
Right. Okay then. I think let's yep, we've been going for a while, so if there's no other questions, nothing from YouTube, and nothing more from Discord. So been a pleasure. That was an awesome talk. Thank you very much. Just one call out again for everyone. If you can, could you please do the survey that I've shared earlier? The link is on the screen again. Let's make that bigger. Oops. And yeah, we're going to be hanging out on Discord for a bit, and then we're going to break off. So thank you everyone for coming, and have a great evening. See you next year. Bye. Let's see. Where is the